All right. So a very warm good morning or good afternoon to uh, us, depending upon the time zone. And thank you so much, Thai, and for joining in today at Enalito's mobile conference uh, panel discussion. And really happy to have you. Thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule. And we'd love to learn more from you about you, your journey, how you started, and a lot more. Before we begin, let me share a brief introduction about you with the audience. So, Thai-Anh Hoang is the founder of clean family skincare brand EmBeba, and she's a mom of two. And prior to her entrepreneurial journey, Thai-Anh led an international team of Fortune 500 company implementing data analytics software and services for CPG companies. She helped establish brands optimize their data for strategic decision making. She is also the co-founder of Orphans Future Alliance, a Southeast Asian nonprofit organization dedicated to lifting orphans out of poverty through scholarship and activity-based mentoring. Thai-Anh also earned a spot on the 2021 Boston Business Journal 40 under 40 list. Thai-Anh, welcome to the panel. Glad to have you, and I'm really, really excited to learn more from you and from your journey. So my first question to you is purpose. Okay, I think everything that we do in life is purpose, and you being in this journey for such a long time have had different positions and kind of experienced different thing while working with different brands, working with different companies and people. What is that one thing that drives you on this big journey, on this big entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. Well, I think like your passion and just being just a workaholic, I'm a professed workaholic to begin with, helps. I think passion is something that you have to have in order to drive purpose. And part of that is my passion has always been about helping children. And that really started at a very, very young age. It's instilled into me by my parents' philosophy. So when I was in my 20s, I feel like I'm dating myself a little bit here. I'm in my 20s. I started Orphans Futures Alliance, and that was really to help children. That was my first real step forward of helping children. And that gives me a sense of purpose of really making impact, even if it's just one or two children. It's actually over hundreds now in two countries, in Vietnam and Thailand. So I'm very proud of my team and the work they're doing in the local countries. But then from a professional side, I think you just want to learn. I think a lot of people I don't know, I might have stayed in corporate too long, but I felt that my ability to have so many different roles. So I actually came from like the big four and like went into internal accounting to help with the Sarbanes-Oxley, then kept saying yes to everything, regardless if I didn't know how to do it or not. Just say yes, and then you'll figure it out. That's really it. And so then I was able to be put into a variety of executive position in my career. And I kid you not, I was in implementation, but actually have no technical IT background, by the way. But they're like, you'll learn. I'm like, okay, fine. And you have a team. They're like, okay, fine, I'll just do it. And that's the can-do attitude is what you actually need in life, and just go and do it. But then this passion to start EmBeba stems from my own need, because I am diagnosed with really hypersensitive skin. And so are my two children, who have like severe allergy, really prone to skin hive, irritation, eczema, etc. So that challenges and passion to help my children feel the purpose for creating EmBeba. So it's like you need passion and purpose together in order to make something work.
Very, very powerful. And I think something that starts right from within you, like which is very personal and close to you. I think that's very, very deep, and that definitely must be a driving force for that you built this brand and started this journey. I know it's not easy, especially after spending so much time in the corporate world where you have donned several hats, worked with large cross-functional teams, and handled complex projects. So, of course, this must be not an easy decision, but of course you took that, and I think, wow, I think sky's the limit. So kudos. I think you said it right.
There is a
Passion and
difference.
purpose. Yeah.
Passion, purpose, and you really have to take a leap of faith. I think the biggest thing is that you just have to try, and if you and give yourself a time limit. So when I decided to like take a step back in my corporate career in like really a tail end of 2018, I was working on this like in the mid 2018, but then really fully dedicated full time into 2019. I gave myself 1 full year. I said, can I bring, without any product development background or really any background in really building a brand from the marketing side, can I develop a product, at least one product, and build an entire brand ready by like that I feel that it's viable to launch in a year. So I was lucky enough, emphasize lucky, that I could take a step back in my career, a pause, and go and do that. And then at the end of 2019, of course, when the pandemic started to happen, we were actually really about to launch in 6 months. So we're like, okay, this is, then you make the next milestone. I'm going to launch the product and see. And if it doesn't work, I can always go back. So you always have like push yourself and have different milestones and make sure you achieve those milestones. And if you don't, you can actually just say, I tried. But the fact that if you don't try, it's just never going to happen.
Well said. Well said. Taking that leap of faith, extremely important. Yeah. Thai-Anh, we would love to learn more about EmBeba and the product, that how the product came into inception, and what has gone back. Like, if you can tell us a little bit the backstory, how the product came to life, and what is the significance of the product, if you can.
Yeah. So EmBeba is about stress-free, mess-free, sensitive skin health. Our mission is to really demystify, make managing skin health easier for the family, for the user, which is right now the children, the infant and child, and essentially provide a very positive experience in managing skin sensitivity and like challenges, irritation, like eczema, psoriasis, etc. So with that mission in mind, it powers our product development, what we want to do in product development. And we always said that in our product development, the key things that we focus on in order for a product to be launched is functionality, plus are we addressing the emotional aspect of the situation in which the product will be used. So I think the first product we designed was a diapering product, because every single child will have one diaper rash in his life. And actually about 30% of children have very high, is considered classified as sensitive skin or prone to eczema in the beginning phases of their life. And in fact, 50% of adults consider themselves having sensitive skin, whether they're diagnosed or not. So it's like this conundrum. But for children, if you're a parent, you understand that having a diaper rash is a very emotionally stressful experience and traumatizing for the child and for the whoever's changing the diaper. The baby is very uncomfortable. They're red, they're rashy, they're crying. The crying like really triggers the stress level in the parent. They're trying to soothe the baby, but trying to also put on all these like heavy cream, smelly. It's a really messy and like really stressful moment. What EmBeba did instead is we took that moment and we said, how can we elevate it, that moment? How can we turn such a crazy, stressful moment to a positive experience and and not have the parents or the child change their behaviors? So we did that with our first product, which is our diapering product. We utilize toy design theories to produce a packaging, 100% sustainable packaging, which automatically grabs the child, the baby, infant attention. They will stop crying. Like we tried this so many times with parent testing panels and real life situation too. They'll stop crying. They'll heavily focus on this, and they'll stay focused on this. It becomes like a very fidgety toy. We made it so it acts and feel like a sensory toy for the child. that relieves the stress right away. The parents can go about changing the diaper. They just lie out the balm, which is also a coloring book, by the way. You push it up, they clean, they swipe, done. Less than 30 seconds, done. You took out the putting the cap, putting the thing on your hand, wiping it, wiping your hand off of the mess, and hopefully the baby's not moving around and all that. You went from a 5-minute to a 30-second exercise. That's how you make a very highly effective natural product that solves an emotional, challenging situation. And so we took that and built an entire product portfolio that is actually going to be launching every few months. We're launching our soothing balm and soothing patch this week, at the end of this week as well. And that those two products, come back to our website and at the end of this week, and you'll see, have never been on the market, and it's just going to change the way you manage skin irritation in the summer, particularly bug bites.
Wow, that's kudos. I think that's very, very amazing, and that attention to detail, or to understand the child's behavior, the parent's behavior, what exactly happens during those that stage, and how it can be solved with that theory that you just mentioned. And wow, I think this attention to detail can take your product a long way. And I think that's what consumers these days love about product, where the product should be solving a pain point, a problem that consumer is facing. And I think what the problem that you are solving is really the problem that I think picking up that niche that and focus, and knowing that, okay, this looks like a small problem, there are a lot of product, but you've gone beyond that and you focused on it. And I think the product that you just showed, I think is really, really a solution for it, and consumers love it. Consumers love the innovation.
Well, I think like as long as you can change and make an impact in the consumer life in their particular journey, you're going to earn a lifetime, a lifelong customer and advocates for your product. And we consider our brand as a life cycle brand, because the people the consumer who we're trying to solve for are ones that might start out with just a diapering rash, but might end up having sensitive skin or rashes throughout your life. If you think about yourself, you probably have rashes once in a while in your life too. EmBeba is built to be as part of that overall skin health management of your life, and not really considering ourselves as just a skincare brand out there, but solving a problem that the consumer didn't realize they needed help solving is really where you're going to win.
Well said, well said. Thai-Anh, since you launched your business like this venture 3 years back, definitely it must be full of challenges. And I think especially with the pandemic and everything, I think the plans that you might have made with your team, you might have to change them, and that would have brought in a lot of stress and difficulties. But I think being someone who know how to find a way, and that can do attitude, you found your way, and I think the brand is doing phenomenally well, established its presence, have a loyal audience. So if you can share with the audience, what are some of the challenges that you face within those first early years like 2019, 2020, and how did you overcome them along with your team?
So so we actually were supposed to launch in 2020, but of course the pandemic and the thing, so we actually delayed our launch by over a year to 2021. So we officially didn't launch the company to the public until about the end of February 2021. That's when we went live. But behind the scene, there was just a ton of challenges. You know, we were self-funded for the first 2 years of our life. All the product development and all the costs adds up. And you know, since we were not producing a single product just yet, it could be very stressful when you are starting out on your own and wearing many hats, I think. And then with the pandemic, it did really like put it on another level. I would say supply chain, logistics, things you didn't think you would need to think about at such an early stage, you start to think about really early stage. And this is where like my IT training kicks into gear. And this is where then you go, okay, You need a cold site and a hot site. If you're in IT,
Yeah.
you know what this means. You need A, B, and C, and D mitigation plan. So then you start to map it all out. And if you're not, and so that is actually the experience that I was able to gather and learn from in my corporate that translated very well into now. And this is why we did not feel the impact of the supply chain impact, just shipping costs really, but supply chain impact as all the other brands did. It's because we did really focus heavily on operational and infrastructure effectiveness as one of the core things that we have to build on before when we launch the brand, and we continue to fine tune it. I think some of the challenging is, as a young brand, no one knows about you. It's like holding a sign in World Times right in the middle of like New Year's Eve. Like nobody's gonna find you. So at first I had this idea, like I'm gonna launch and suddenly we're gonna be like millions of orders. Parents just gonna know about it. None of that does happen. When you are starting out, and it's actually easier to become an adopter versus a pioneer, because we consider ourselves a pioneer in the category. We have to educate. We spend an enormous amount of time, effort educating parents, new consumer about our brand and how to use our product and why it's so different. They don't get into they actually use it. So that all that time, effort spent, something you don't have to do if you're like making a shampoo and conditioner, knocking about anything about it. It just simply, there's not that heavy lifting that you have to do on your end. So some of those challenges that we worked on, and we deployed like multiple tactics. But to be honest, it was just luck. Like 3 months after we launched, we won Parents Magazine, the foremost authority on parenting in the US, Best Skincare for Award. We were on the cover with like Honest Company in the photo, and we're like, oh. So we're like, wow, this is like really small brand that came out of nowhere, and suddenly we were like best for itchy diapering skin. And so that actually, it's like lighting a fire. It like give us legitimacy, put us on a map, and then that started this train where then we won Mom's Choice Award, we won World Packaging Award for sustainability, and then we also won National Parenting Product Awards for our diapering product. And that just like puts us on, and all those accolades and then PR and press that we received because the people started to pick up on us made a huge difference. And then we're like this brand that just came out of nowhere. I mean, I think our brand is still very small, and I'm sure if you call 1 out of 10 people still probably haven't heard about us or will, because we are launching nationwide to multiple retailers this year. But it is challenging, but I would say it's part luck. And I think if you look at any other brands out there that have really gained momentum, part of it is luck. Like, who knew we were going to win the award right off the bat like that? But we kind of knew because we built a product that was just so crazily different that they picked up on it. But for them to then gave us their seal of approval was just something we never anticipated. We thought maybe a year later, 2 years, when the product was on the market, was much longer, but we were like 3 months out of the gate. So that was very different. And that was the catalyst that really propelled us forward. Otherwise, I think it would have been a lot harder. So I do credit a bit of luck on that end.
Well said. So that's what they say, well begun is half done. And I think it was your preparation. I think the amount of time that went into product development. Of course, it's not that easy. The final product looks good to everyone, but people never get to know how many iterations you might have to come up with along with your team, and how painful or stressful the whole product development cycle can be. But yeah, I think that seal of approval, those awards, of course, they worked really well in your favor. And of course, I think it's a long journey, and you're just getting started, and you have miles to cover before I think your next inflection point.
Yes, and I think the products that we are launching now this month is actually going to cement us as the innovator in this space, because for the very long time we only had one product, and now and then we had the rescue bomb, which was actually, we never anticipated making the rescue bomb. It was simply that parents, particularly male, our demographic of buyers are male. Quite a large chunk of them are male and climbing for a baby brand. It's actually really interesting for me, the demographics for me. And they were asking us for adult products. And since said, okay, we'll make a rescue bomb, which is like an ultra concentrated farmer remedy that works everywhere, because they were emailing us and they were like giving us feedback, like, hey, I was carrying the diaper bomb around, I was putting it on my face, I took that with me to like the ski slope with my children and it worked so well, blah, when are you going to make adult products and stuff? And I was like, okay, we'll make one. So that's also that the thing is like, you make products that you get customer feedback on. Correct. And you make products they want, not only that you think they need.
Wow. I think that's a very excellent insight that you shared, that consumers are loving it for what you have built, but they're asking and sharing that feedback of what more they are looking for. I think that kind of validation and that kind of feedback coming in from consumers can be really game changer, and you never know if because it's something that is coming from consumers like need. I think it's you already established your presence, build that trust, and the consumers know what more you can come up with. So wow, that's something very, very interesting.
And I actually read every single feedback. I actually read every single email. Well, at least I try. Now I can't read every single email, but I do read emails almost every day that comes in.
Very cool. Very cool.
And in fact, there was this really weird instance of like, so you know how when you start a business, sometimes you put your personal number. So I don't know how, but there was a glitch, and a customer called our hotline, and the glitch for some reason routed it to my cell phone. And so I picked up the phone, and they were like, "Is this EmBeba?" And of course, I were like revert. I don't know why, but I was like, "Hi, this is customer service." And they were like, I'm like, oh my God, I love your product and stuff, but I'm having but I shipped it to the wrong address. Can you help me? Here's my address. And then of course I'm like, actually you just reached the CEO. But if you just send me a note, I will make sure the team fix it. So it was like one of those instances where you get like really direct consumer feedback, but then you weren't prepared for it. And then you get flustered, and then you kind of like start to pretend your customer service and realize you couldn't really solve the problem. So I have to tell them the truth that if they reach your number directly, now you have to like go and email your team to fix the problem. So it was really
fun. I think these instances really are moments where you create that consumer delight, because consumers directly talking to you and telling they love it. I think that is the biggest testimonial that you and your team can get, and it can beat everything. I think all the challenges, doesn't matter what the situation are. I think if the consumers are happy, sky's the limit, because that you've got that consumer for life, and he's going to bring 100 different consumers to you. So
it's probably going to tell that same story in their perspective, but yes,
absolutely. And I think this is what defines building a direct to consumer brand. So Thai-Anh, my next question for you is around, I think, your target audience, what is their persona, and so you have your team. So what kind of marketing strategies you have deployed or working with your team in order to kind of increase that outreach? Of course, so you have your traditional channels like email, your online store, Facebook, Google advertising. So what are you currently doing, and what more are you planning to do in future in order to grow more?
That is a very, really important question. Like as a brand, there's just so many ways you do it, but then you have to really hone in what's going to make sense. I think in the early days, we did test everything and we tried everything, but I would say we didn't do everything well. So now we really hone in, and what we found but one thing is when you do testing, we found things that work. Like for example, with our product, sampling is a key. So we actually invest heavily in providing free samples to doctors, doulas, night nurses, medical professionals, as well as mom groups. We do sampling with like-minded brands. We do a ton of brand collaborations where we also really into supporting other brands. So not just giveaways, but like, for example, doing a lot of, like we did this, we just recently, and it's still there, a cross-brand 12 brand collaboration at Showfield in New York City. It's called The Future of Parenting, where EmBeba pulled together these like amazing next generational parenting brands together to tell a story about like all the new latest and greatest innovation. And by doing that, we position ourselves with all the other brands and really amplify, because 12 different teams, brand groups can amplify the PR reach as well. I think one of them happens to be Bobby, which is like this phenomenal, and they just hit the good luck for a baby formula company. They went like this. So yes, we work with them too, but I think do a ton of really, really targeted brand collaboration is a key. Newsletters, you have to do it really well. One thing we're working on rolling out more is content, is like bridging that gap of education in an easier, better way. But one thing we try not to do is go crazy with like constantly emailing our consumers. We will only email you when we actually have news, honestly. So sometimes it could be like once a month. We don't consider email as, yes, it's nice to have, and it's important for converting, but it has to be able to stand by itself and on its leg. So putting content or like notifying of certain things makes it a little bit more compelling and people to open. Otherwise, if you're constantly bombarding and saying like, sell, people are just gonna like ignore you. We started to do SMS a little bit more, but I think for parents and our consumer demographics, you have to be very careful about SMSing because if the noise come off and the baby's sleeping, you're in trouble. They'll be pissed at you because you're like, why are you sending me a text? You know, all these things. So, so those things. But I think also working on your PR game, marketing and PR, but really building content. That's going to help go a long way. A/B test a ton of different channels, and we'll use influencers. One thing is to find the right influencer. So not just picking an influencer who is, you know, too big of an influencer, or like not the right type of influencer for your brand. That's very helpful too. So we actually are very selective and choosy of influencer we work with, and we actually just email you directly if we think you're like the right fit to work with us. And so I think that's where influencer management and influencer campaign is something everyone talks about, but then you want to make sure that it's aligned with your brand and it tells an authentic story. Otherwise, people might just be under the impression that you paid the influencer to just do things. And like consumers are very, very good at sniffing out authenticity. So you just have to make sure that any type of tactics that you employ continue to convey your brand authenticity and messaging.
Well said. That's really well said. And I'm really happy to know that you are trying like everything, and not just the traditional stuff, but every possible tool out there in order to kind of increase that outreach and let that brand awareness to be taken to the next level. And as you said it rightly, of course, I think content is the king. And I think that making sure that the consumers, you are in touch with the consumers, letting them know what products are coming, what is new, so that they know. And I think it's a long journey. So I think having the right balance and using different channels efficiently can really produce very good results at the end of the day. Wonderful. This is a great insight.
And if you're like just starting out, to start on one key channel. I think that's what the lesson learned for us is we tried too many, and then we learned, but we weren't good at a lot of them. So now we honed it into like what we do well. And as you have more funding, you can really start to engage in services that just makes it more efficient to do.
Right.
hire an agency who can like manage and create your email marketing for you. You still drive the content, but then you kind of, it frees up the time for your own team to really work on strategy and like moving the company forward, the brand forward, instead of like
Right.
mire in the details. So I think that's the other thing, is like outsource as you have the funds to do, so that you can continue, you stay connected and focus on your core. And it is, making products that solve everyday needs.
Well said. Well said. Absolutely. That's amazing. Thai-Anh, my next question for you is around after launching the brand and achieving that or kind of acquiring those early adopters, and like what those early adopters are, and having achieved that significant, let's say, scale of, let's say, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. It can be anything. That number can be anything of those early adopters, and they are your ambassadors. Do you look at the data points that you have acquired, that, okay, who are these people, from what demographic that they have come in from, how they discovered your brand, or how frequently do they buy from you, or if someone has bought from you once, do they come back and buy from you again? Do you look at those data points and any trend or any insight that you have got so far? Because we, being a data company, like where we have built algorithms in order to kind of understand consumer behavior and product behavior, we realize that your data is the new oil, and everyone is sitting on that data, but it's very difficult to derive any inference from it. Like, for example, who are your VIP customers? Who are your customers that your brand can lose? Because retention is the key, because acquiring a new customer is extremely difficult in today's world, but retaining an existing one can be easy. So how do you look at these different data points, and did you notice any trends?
Oh, plenty of trends. Coming from the fact that I come from a market research company for years, I think we focus on data quite a bit.
Wonderful.
And you get so much data anyway, because we're on Amazon, we're on our D2C website. We're going to get retailer data later on this year, but as we move into national retailing, but you can dissect data in so many ways. And I think fundamentally the first thing you want to do is to ask the questions of what are you trying to find out about using data. So start with that before, otherwise you get mired into create like a black hole of data, I call it. And then build KPIs that you want to track. So we track KPIs from financial, operational, marketing, everything from ROI on like marketing spend, our sales, different channels, average order value by channel. We mark what is the repeat purchase rate. We also model out, not just getting like very nerdy on the data thing, but we actually model out cohorts based on our ability to data scrape Amazon data as well, of who are the demographics and how often they would buy our products and things. And then some of the things we learn is that, and this is where it's coming out, is our initial thesis is that our brand is really geared for the more affluent, 100 plus, highly educated consumer who are into natural, your Whole Foods shoppers, things like that, right? That's what we think is our consumer when we started. What our data tells us is actually not the case at all, is that our brand has such a wide reach that a majority of our consumer are under 100,000 in household income. And mind you, we're not the cheapest product. We're just like, we're actually a premium product to begin with. So you have to ask yourself, why are they buying our product versus what's in Target, what's in the market right now? And like, what is the purchasing factors? Things, and then things like and if you keep in mind, we only have two products, a diapering product and adult product. And that's it. Like at this time, we'll have more at the end of this month. But the other key insights that we learn is that the buyers of our products are just so wide ranging. Like we have elderly demographics, we have moms, we have dad. And one of the key things was our cohorts of dads. It's trending. We keep, like, I think our cohort of dad is close to over 30-something% of buyers are dads.
Yes.
Or well, I could assume dads, but it's male. So for a baby brand who makes only one product for general product for adult and one for diaper, it's actually very intriguing that and what we're thinking about in the thesis is that guys kind of like one things to be easy. They don't care. They just like, oh my God, I don't have to get dirty. I don't have hands. That's it. This is the product. And they text each other. They're like, have you tried this product? Or they like dads that like using it. And then the other dads are going, oh my God, this is awesome. Why didn't you tell me about it? So it's a lot of it's word of mouth. And this is why we start seeing trending of like male demographic buying our products, particularly our diapering product. I mean, that is what we are discerning from our data. So data is really important. And I think you have to track it very early in the beginning. We started really tracking our data really in 2021. Well, because we just launched, right? I would say that even before you launch, you should also start putting KPIs, tracking, and you can do a ton of Googling to figure out if you're a D2C company, what should you track. But as you go, as you progress, you'll learn what else you need to track. Like for us, for example, we had to start tracking velocity in terms of in-store velocity, because we are going into small retailers, mom and pop boutiques, and now national retailing in a few months. Then, you know, that's really key things to remember. And actually that drives product. All these KPIs drive product development and what product we launch is, how do we build our product? We learn a lot from it.
Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, so good to know. And I think, so you know all the pieces of puzzle and how to figure out that trend. And that you mentioned something very interesting, like you assume that the consumers who would be buying from you, definitely they might be there, but you have those other consumers who are also loving your product. Wow, that's a very I think that's something which only data can tell you. I think by listening, and I think by knowing where to look and knowing the right questions. But it's all about knowing what KPIs you need to dig in, and for which specific KPIs you're looking for in the data. Otherwise, data is like a black hole. You never come out of it. So yes. Very, very interesting insight. Thai-Anh, let's talk a little bit about teams. Okay, I think you have a ton of experience, and but you and your team, that's where the magic happens. That's where everything aligns and great things can happen. So if you can talk a little bit, so your team is also a product, if you look at it that way. So if you can share something about your team and how do you collaborate now that we have been last 2 years very turbulent, remote work. So how do you manage all that turbulence to make sure everything is functioning smoothly? If you can share some nuggets, and how do you encourage your team? I think now more than ever, this whole online fatigue that has creeped in, and so people haven't been going to offices, so it's there, that fatigue is there. So how do you motivate, how do you encourage your team, because your team is your biggest asset, and just like your product, and they are the foundation on which everything kind of moves forward. So if you can share some nuggets, how you do team bonding, some tips related to building a great team.
Yes, I think it starts from the top. And actually, let me take a step back. I spent majority of my career traveling. I've actually like one of those remote workers before remote working was a thing. So it was mostly airplanes, office, like everything starts to be the same. I think I've told my team I've been to 40 plus countries at this point. They all look the same. I just get on the airplane, get off the airplane, and that's it. So I'm very used to working in a remote situation. And in some cases, because I work on a global team, I have to be able to interact with teams in Asia, Europe, everywhere. remotely, never actually seeing them, maybe once a year. So that skill set that I've learned in corporate translate over really well. And I built the company, and our key mission that we say internally is that we are helping families thrive, our consumer thrive. But we're helping our own internal family thrive. And what does that truly mean? So it really starts from the top. Our company is comprised of women, majority all moms of children from various age group, from newborn all the way up to like teenagers. They value their time. So it's almost like understanding your consumer. It's like you have to understand what your team composition is as well, and how to tailor your organization to your team composition. So what my team asks for is flexibility. It's flexibility. And this is what I wanted in corporate. And as I have young children too, this is what I built into the company, is like, because there's so many great, amazing suite of tools out there to help your team manage remotely. You don't really have to be thing. I think the pandemic accelerated the work from home movement. I always envisioned the company to be partially work from home to begin with. But with the pandemic, my entire team went everywhere. Like nobody's in Boston now, except for me. I can't get them to come back. but that's the thing. But like I was just teasing there. But what the thing is, you find the best people when you allow them to be in there in whatever environment they want to be.
Yes.
And it starts from the top. So we put together an infrastructure, all these tools, software infrastructure to enable them to thrive. I've also have a very strict rule of, I very honest to the team that I'm a workaholic. I admit that. I don't want my team to be a workaholic, so I don't want them to get stressed out. But as a CEO of the company, it's my job to make sure the team, to bring the company to the next milestone. That means I will be emailing you at 3 a.m. in the morning. And I tell my team when they actually onboarded, it's like, you find an email, you get a text from me at 3 a.m. in the morning through Slack and channel. I will not text you or call you, but like Slack channel or like forward email, it's probably because I'm up, because I have an infant who's not sleeping. And since I'm sitting there, I'm going to be checking my email, because that's that type of person I am. But I do not expect you to check your email. I expect you to turn off your phone, off everything until you check in to the next day. I want you off. And then if you actually email me back, I will call you and say, why are you emailing me? Why are you up? Kind of moment. So it really starts from the tone from the top, that you have to set that the expectation for your team is not to be you. Like otherwise you're burned out, honestly. The expectation for your team is for them to work as hard as they need to, but then set it aside and do. So there's never, and we have a no apology policy here at EmBeba. So I will tell my team, I don't have childcare. I'm sorry, half of the call has to be canceled today. I will only take emergency call. I will actually say that and show that kind of, what it likes to be a working parent. And so my team, because it comes from the top, I have my team who said, my child's sick, I'm not going to be able to take call. And then they don't have to apologize to me. I told the team never to apologize for being a parent. So they would just cancel meeting and say, do we need to get them? Like, no. And then the other thing is, I hate emails and I hate conference calls, obviously. So I actually tell my team, if we can just put everything into Slack channels and thing, and then if you really need to explain something, do a Loom video and then send it to me. I will watch it. And you can explain things in a Loom video in 5 minutes. That will, if I have to get on a call with you, will take a 30 minutes to do. So we put all these things in place. We put procedures, tone from the top, so that the team doesn't feel burned out and they feel like they empower. And I have a very flat organization, given that we're a small team. And I don't like to micromanage. I think that's really bad. But at the same time, there's pros and cons to that. And I think people are so used to getting validation, like, yes, you're doing really good, or yes, you're doing bad. I literally tell my team, I tell my entire team that if you don't hear from me, it's actually really good news. Like, I will tell you when things are off the rail. I will tell you when I don't like something, but I'm not there to tell you every day you're doing a good job. just do your job.
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
so I think being upfront about you, your personality, how you operate, so that everyone's clear, so there's no guessing involved. And then it's also tone at the top, and you have to be very empathetic to understand the need of your own employees and treat them with the way you want to be treated, or how I wanted to be treated when I like as an employee to employer relationship. And that's what you're going to get the most mile out of, and really a great organization.
Very well said. I really liked and admire that that you're thinking from the top, and you are kind of creating that environment where your talent thrives in that environment, where they feel comfortable in what they do. They know what they can do, and you're putting everything clearly, laying it down and making sure that they know what the vision is, what the milestones are, and you're creating that very conducive environment. I think this is what is the most important thing. You might have read about Simon Sinek, right?
Yes, I like him. Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I also think there is one person in my career who really gave me this thinking. Her name is, oh my God, but I think she did this thing. When I was just starting out in online brand metric tracking, she had me pitch to the head of craft in marketing. And I tell you, I was like associate level. I just was terrible. I probably butchered that entire presentation. And then she stepped in and she did the rest. But then she gave me then she actually said to her boss, as her thing, like that, you know, they loved what we said in the presentation. It actually didn't came from her. She gave me the credit for the analytics. And she told me what she hated in her career was being excluded because of how inexperienced she was, or like how she was young. She wanted to give associates and like younger staff a chance to get that experience, so they know and they learn. And I really took that with me. So some of the key things I did is that I had my new team. I'm like, when I have my board meeting, I don't want to be the one talking all the time. So I actually told like, for example, when we had to talk about product launches, I'm like, why don't you go? I was telling my product managers, like, I'm going to give you 20 minutes. You go and pitch and talk about our product development for 2023 to the board. I'll be there. I'll sit there and I'll chime in, but you go and pitch. That way they know your name. They know you as a person on this team. And I did the same thing with my marketing person and all these things. And it helps because you have to give them the experience. Of course, they're scared. So you make sure that, you know, you on the other hand, make sure all the presentation, everything looks good so that, you know, you're not going to let them fall. But giving them the experience to have that conversation, be part of the VC conversation when you're pitching to VCs and all these things that they don't get anywhere else, is really going to make the impact. Because you have to remember that if they stay with you for 3 years or 2 years, that's all you need. You're not there to, if they stay with you for more than that, great. If not, you want to make sure that you help them get to the next level while they're here and get something out of working versus you just sucking them dry.
Wow, what a phenomenal thought. I mean, this is absolute, I think, most important thing in today's world, where I think the senior leaders creating that environment and letting people understand, I mean, giving people that ability, that opportunity to thrive. I think it's really important, and you never know the gems that can come out of those opportunities, the amazing things that you can create. I mean, there's a saying, which is like, leaders begets leaders. It's like leaders produce more leaders. So I think that kind of environment you're creating for your team, kudos. I think that's very, very important. And I think Simon Sinek, that's what he mentioned, like, if people know the why, everything will just happen. Otherwise, everything is just so cosmetic and it just fluff. But I think if the why is like super, super strong, things can become so big that one can't even imagine. And I think his theory of why is very popular. And I'm really
I
happy
love,
that you are
I listened to that one. It's very powerful. It's very powerful.
very powerful. And I think the most important thing that I realized that you just mentioned, that it starts from you, it starts from the top, and then it
Mhm.
percolates to everyone within the team. So I think that that can be game changer, and it creates a sense of very positive environment. I think that energy that you create, and that's what innovation is. I think product innovation is a very different thing, but I think it's creating that environment for people to thrive.
Yeah.
Innovation, people innovation, it can produce massive impact
So like,
for the company.
and that drives down a lot, right? And you hit on a key point here. When your team feels ownership, they're going to chime in and bring in their best. And the innovation that we have in our pipeline, I like, after the first few concepts and things, a lot of the concepts came from my team. We have we have actually an all team, all staff monthly product development meeting. Actually, we have one like right after this, where everyone goes in and they know what we're trying to solve in product development, and they actually go in and like send in all the crazy ideas. We talk about it, like, oh, that might work, okay, and then we kind of go through it. So
very cool.
So like when they say like who builds EmBeba, like where your product development come from, originally, yes, it was me who started the company, but it's the team that does it. Yeah.
Well said, well said. Excellent. I mean, this is amazing. And Thai-Anh, as we are coming to an end of this discussion, I have one last question for you, which is around what is that one piece of advice that you would like to give to your loved one, to your younger one, someone who comes to you asking, hey, I want to launch a business. What can I do? Where should I begin? From you, I know you can share a lot, but what is that one thing that you will tell them so that they can get started? Because otherwise everything looks like a big battle. So you mentioned in the early initial leap of faith. Is there anything else that you would like to add there?
Break it down to baby steps. I would say that when you have an idea, everyone has an idea. It's execution that makes the difference, right? So, and we're not supposed to know every single answer to that question because it changes all the time. But my advice is that when you have an idea, create a straw map, create like a pseudo roadmap of like, so I'll give you an example. I said I wanted to build a skincare company that helps help family, particularly starting at young age, to manage their skin health independently. And how do I do that? So that's a very broad theme, right? You can just go all over the place. So then I said, first starts with product development. What product are you going to develop? So you kind of like make it into an action item. Along the way, all those little action steps is going to come out to be a plan. But you have to actually start writing down the next 10 steps that you need to make. So I wouldn't like go and make like 100 steps and like say in like, but you knowing that maybe in 10 years, this is what I want to do. But the first 10 steps, what is it that I have to do now? And then write them down and then start. If you can finish those 10 steps and you're still interested in doing another 10 steps, then you know you have a really good idea, and then you should really take that leap of faith.
Excellent, excellent. That's a very amazing and excellent advice coming from you, and having that leap of faith and breaking it down to in steps to help you achieve your objective and to get started, of course. And if you know that you know what the steps are, I think you can achieve anything. This is Thai-Anh, I must say, has been an excellent conversation with you. Thank you so much for taking out time and sharing freely about your journey, your learnings, your experiences. And I would love to chat with you more and learn on some other topic, maybe related to brand building. And this turn, I would love to know and talk about. And I think, but today's conversation has been very, very amazing. I think you are going to inspire a lot of leaders on the way, especially the entrepreneurial journey that you have taken up. I think we need more female founders and more exciting ventures solving amazing problems. So sky's the limit. I think the world that we are living in, we feel like, oh, for everything there's
Yeah.
always a product, but no, I think there's always a scope for innovation, and that's what I think your product stands for. More power to you and your team, and keep doing this amazing thing. And wish you all the best for all the upcoming product launches, and look forward to speaking with you soon again. And yeah, thank you so much once again. Have a great
Thank you
day
for having
ahead.
me.
Thank you. Thank you,
you.
Thai-Anh. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Bye.